Welcome back, everyone. So now we begin with session 6, addressing the future of digitalization through demand-side planning, co-hosted with VTT Technical Research Center of Finland. Finland is also a country member of the LTS network. This session explores how countries are incorporating digitalization signals, such as sector growth forecasts, industrial zoning trends, and technology adoption pathways into demand-side scenario frameworks. The focus is on how LTES can help prepare power systems for sustained demand growth from digitalization, ensuring timely investment in grids, flexibility, resources, and supporting infrastructure. The session will be moderated by Dr. Tiina Koljonen, Principal Scientist in Carbon Neutral Solutions at VTT Technical Research Center for Finland. Dr. Koljonen has over 30 years of experience in sustainable energy systems and transitions towards carbon neutral societies. Her work includes delivering climate, energy, and RDI policy impact analysis for the Finnish government and parliament, the European Commission, and the Nordic Council of Ministers. She also coordinates national research priorities and research projects supporting Finland's energy and climate strategy towards carbon neutrality by 2035. Before we begin the discussion, Tiina will also invite two scene-setting presenters. We will have Adrian, who will be presenting in person, and Andrea online. And Tiina, the floor is yours. Please welcome Dr. Tiina with a round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you so much for a kind presentation, and welcome to this session number 6. Well, this is one of the topics which I also tried to emphasize that what are really important uncertainties to consider for the future analysis. The last session was related to the critical raw materials already, which is very important if we are thinking about clean energy transition. Data centers is a huge topic in Finland. You are able to see nearby every day a news about data centers. The discussion is around, is it a good for Finland or is it a bad for Finland? And I would like to tell them first shortly an example about the situation in Finland, because the energy and digitalization in Finland is also related to candies. And how that happened, it was that the Finnish candy factory in Finland, they have planned a new factory. And then the government decided that, well, we will increase the tax for candies, so excise tax. And then the Finnish company says that, okay, if you increase the tax for candies, we will cancel the whole thing. And instead of increasing the candy tax, they decided to increase the excise tax for data centers. And then we ended up with a new situation. There are several international companies who are really eager to come to Finland. And Google said recently, okay, if you are increasing the excise taxes for data centers, we will not come to Finland. And what happened? The Prime Minister said, okay, we will cancel the tax increase for data centers. And now we are waiting for what is the new tax where something else. Is it a health security or something else? This is just an introduction to that how complicated things could be. So, but we will start with the introduction. So I will first welcome Andrea Gonzalez. He's a leading program officer to give the first introduction speech. Welcome.
Hello, thank you for your kind words. So I would try to give a glimpse of what IRENA is doing in regards of the resourcing, what we call the resourcing AI, so renewable energy sourcing of data centers, and also how we see AI and digitalization transforming power systems in the short term. For decades, we have been seeing the growth of consumption from data centers, but as you can see in this chart, in the last 5 years, more or less, since the pandemic, it is starting to ramp up due to cloud services, due to crypto mining, due to video streaming. And now with AI, this trend is only going to increase faster. How faster is the question. We see the diverging projections, and this can become really important in power systems globally. For instance, in the case of Ireland, the energy consumption from data centers is already exceeding the 20% of the demand of the power system. This is expected to reach 30% by the end of this decade. And also the figure for US is supposed to amount to 10% of their power system demand by 2030. It's also something that is very much uncertain. We have a lot of drivers of this uncertainty, which is especially challenging for an accurate planning. We see the scale of AI adoption, the model complexities, the hardware development and efficiencies, the certification efforts, the taxation systems, as we were mentioning before. Also the grid availability, because all in all data centers can be deployed in 1 or 2 years, but grid expansion is not precisely done overnight. From IRENA, we believe that even more important than the amount is the source, what matters more. Data centers are driving notable investments in additional capacities in different technologies. It's important to mention here that when we try to decarbonize the so-called hard-to-abate sectors, or we try to push for electrification, we should not forget that data centers are already native electricity consumers. So it's a bit of a contradiction when we allow them to go for the gas or fossil fuel-based solutions to meet their demand needs. No? So yeah, no matter if they are purely grid connected or with dual supply, implying co-location of new power plants, they are hungry for power, and this is also challenging for planning. This is a recognition of the efforts for some of the data center majors regarding their contribution to the deployment of renewables. So you can see here growing contracting PPAs for renewables, also a bit for nuclear, but you can see the figures there speak by themselves. It's also, I was mentioning before about the grid expansion. From IRENA, we are trying to propose flexibility schemes and a set of archetypes that try to couple the need for these data centers to connect in the short term to the grids, and also sometimes next to city centers where the demand for their services and for the low latencies is key, with the reality of grid congestion. No? So how to match these two sides of the coin is something we are deeply working on in IRENA. I wanted to talk now about the other angle, no? the other angle of digitalization and AI, and how these technologies can contribute to power systems decarbonization. And on this regard, we are about to publish a report which recommends policymakers to focus in what we call the value clusters, or the areas where digitalization and AI can have a major impact. This is monitoring, when we talk about the smart meters and granular and high quality data; forecasting, when we use the data for this advanced renewable energy forecasting like solar or wind, but also for predictive maintenance, for instance; operational optimization, end user automation, and transparency. I will not elaborate much on this because I'm running out of time, but will give you a glimpse of that. Also, we found that in many regions that despite the digitalization measures are already available, it's taking long to implement them. And for tackling this, we understand that it's important to quantify the benefits that this digitalization and AI solutions provide. We have clustered them all in these 5 sets: the reduction of electricity cost for end users, greater integration of renewables, improved security of supply, added value for end users in terms of control or comfort, and improved business performance. These are aspects that should be taken into consideration to develop policy actions that actually lead to this needed adoption of digitalization and AI in the power system. Regarding the long-term energy planning, we see that including these solutions in the planning can de-risk investments, or can make this investment more appealing, or more at least they raise awareness of the existence of these solutions for the investors, and this turns into the deployment of them. That is not happening at the needed pace, as I was mentioning before. So I really encourage you all to take into consideration this in your long-term energy planning work. It really makes a difference if you consider that the dynamic line rating is already there and can support the needed grid capacities for the investors to take the decision to go for these solutions in the short term. And additionally, last but not least, AI-powered planning software can also improve and speed up energy planning processes. I will not extend more. Just I recommend you to have a look of this report we are publishing today. Will be available in our website in this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the great introduction. We will continue our agenda. Next, we will have a speaker online. We have Andrea Weiner from REN21, checking the technologies. Okay, I can see you. Do you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, great. Yeah.
Can you see my full screen?
Yes, we can see your full screen.
Okay,
so
great.
Please, stage is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Thanks for the introduction. Thanks to IRENA for the invitation to participate in this forum. And thank you, Adrian, for the great scene setting. Sorry. I'm Andrea Weiner. I'm part of the Knowledge and Data team at REN21. Very quickly, for those who don't know REN21, we are a global network of governments, intergovernmental organizations, industry associations, NGOs, and academia, working for the transformation of the energy system towards a renewables-based economy. And first of all, at the Knowledge and Data team, we do not modeling in the future, but we do tracking. And I would like to remind the context of our current energy system, where despite progress in the power sector, we are still burning more fossil fuels than ever. with renewables only meeting less than 15% of total final energy consumption. And as Adrian said, we know, everyone here knows that electrification of end uses plays a key role in the uptake of renewables, and digital solutions are also key to ensure the flexibility of the power system. We see there's still a long way to go to effectively electrify end use sectors. Yes, as Adrian already put the picture, the digitalization and consequent growth of data centers worldwide are already one of the key drivers of the growth in electricity demand, together with electrification of industry and increasing need for space cooling. Although as of today is about 1.5% of total electricity demand, some countries are already experiencing very high shares of electricity consumption from data centers, such as Ireland, the Netherlands, Singapore, and several cities. And also most big tech companies are concluding power purchase agreements to secure electricity supply for data centers, unfortunately not always with renewables. And when it comes to future demand, yes, there's a lot of diverging projections and perspectives. There's the concern that putting pressure on grids, rising electricity bills. There's also some arguments about this is less alarming. Data centers' electricity consumption share is still low compared to other uses, and projections range from about 200 to 8,000 terawatt hours for 2030. So that's a factor of almost 40. So yes, here's why we are here today. We see a real need to approach this issue in a systemic way and think of energy planning started from the demand side. Again, you're all the experts here. We need to consider together demand, supply, and storage and flexibility, bringing together all necessary stakeholders and governance levels to embed energy planning in the wider economic thinking. As Joanna said yesterday, it is not a technological transition only, but an economical transition. And this requires to collectively think end uses, which end uses countries and communities prioritize. So to conclude this, where are we standing today in making policy for renewals from the demand side? We see that as of 2024, only 69 countries had national policies in place targeting renewals in one of the four main energy demand sectors: agriculture, buildings, industry, and transport. And only 5 countries had policies for all of those 4 sectors together. So we have a lot of work to do in aligning these policies, and I'm very glad to leave the floor to the discussions and inspiring examples. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much for excellent presentation. Very important topics. I will not touch them now because we will have the panel discussion, and then we will also have the next presentations. So we will move on towards the country presentations. We will have 3 presentations before moving to the panel discussion. And first, I will ask Ricardo Agual. I'm sorry for the pronunciation. He is a researcher at the Director General of Energy and Geology, coming from Portugal. Very interesting to hear about your situation. Thank you.
Thanks, Irene, for the invitation. I'm very happy to be here and convey the experience of Portugal in these areas. The presentation, please. Here it is. So I'm aware of the time constraints, and so I'll try to do this faster. This is the general framework of the long-term energy scenario supported public policies. Actually, we have only 2 groups in Portugal that do integrated energy system. We have lots of academic groups, etc., that do electricity system, but not the integrated energy system. And so we, as a body of the Ministry of Energy and the Environment, do support the specific plans for specific subjects and policies and measures. And we also have interaction with consultants that work on the more strategic documents like roadmaps for carbon neutrality and national energy and climate plans. And regarding this specific theme, I was relieved to see that in very first presentation by IRENA, these the concerns that were raised and the panorama that was exposed was similar to our own vision of these problems. Many countries have many advantages. In our specific case, this geographical location, the existence of several transoceanic cables that go to the Americas, Africa, Europe, of course. And but perhaps the most attractive advantage for project developers is the low cost of renewable energy, and especially solar and wind. At the electricity mix, we have currently about 70% of renewables in the mix, so they come with interest to be powered by renewables. Regarding the outlook, we do have small, around 44 data centers already. That's 1% of the total electric demand, but there are now in place larger and very large data centers in the outlook. And so this will represent perhaps an additional 9%, and that's not really the problem. The problem is that this is supposed to happen in 5 years or so. Regarding the specific model, the representation of these data centers in our modeling, it's a flat demand, more or less, a bit higher in the summer because of more cooling needs, and a bit higher during the business hours, but essentially it is flat. So it's not too difficult to include that in the modeling. The problem comes when we try to match this flat demand with no flexibility with the supply side. And of course, the project developers would like to see a situation where they just go to the market and buy the electricity at the cheapest price. But as in other countries around the world, and specifically in Europe, we have these problems with grid congestion, with and as we have a large penetration of renewables, we are concerned with the nighttime supply, with the weather variability, etc. So this is not a good option. And when we introduce this option in the modeling and scenarios, what comes about is either more imports, which is not politically acceptable as they are already in a high level, imports from Spain, or more gas, which is also not politically acceptable because it leads to more emissions. So this can't be. PPAs are a better option, but in the end, they also suffer from grid congestion and put more stress on the rest of the system. So from the national point of view, the government point of view, it would be the solution would be to power these data centers with local renewable power plants instead. So, but of course, this is not a flat supply to meet the flat demand. So we actually, the modeling shows, as expected, that you will need more storage and a backup connection to the grid. So this already has a reflex on the energy policies of the country. It's included already this type of approach in the National Energy and Climate Plan, and of course you can compute or estimate the required capacity additions for these purposes, and of course in the policies have measures, and I would like to highlight a specific measure that is important in our country, which is industrial zoning. So the zones of high demand, high loads of industries, not just data centers, are defined. And in these regions are prioritized for grid connections and for more faster licensing of any kind of installations. And the project developers, both of renewable power plants and of data centers, agreed to pay themselves the connections to the grid distribution and transmission lines. They pay themselves the infrastructure, and in turn they have a much faster implementation of their plans. So this is a main mechanism to speed up the implementation of data centers. So as you see, it's not, for us, it has not been too difficult to include data centers in our modeling and scenarios, and to transfer that to actual policies and even measures. It's just to create some processes that are separated from the national electricity grid that represent these special industrial zones. But as said in the very first presentation, the problem is to estimate this for the future. It is a hype. It will accelerate in an explosive fashion, or it will level out and not be so aggressive, let's say, for the next decades. This is more a qualitative problem of technological analysis and monitoring the international national survey than really a problem for, let's say, a technical problem for scenarios. Okay, that's our experience. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Several important points. Maybe we will come back to them in the panel discussion, but we will move on. The next presentation will be coming from Korea. I will ask Seung Lee. He's an associate research fellow in Korea Energy Economics Institute. Please. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Seung Lee from South Korea and the Korea Energy Economics Institute, KEEI. And now I'm working on Korea's long-term energy outlook team at KEI. Okay, I'd like to briefly share how Korea is approaching electricity demand forecasting in the era of digitalization and how we are working to ensure a stable power supply. Okay. Sorry. Okay. In Korea, the basic plan for long-term electricity supply and demand is updated every 2 years by a dedicated government committee. And the latest version, the 11th edition, was released in March 2025. And this basic plan presents Korea's electricity demand and supply outlook over the next 15 years. And the 11th edition includes projection and policies through 2038. Okay, and the increase in electricity demand driven by the expansion of data centers has been reflected since the 10th edition. In the 11th edition, additional electricity demand from data center is projected to reach about 15.5 terawatt hour by 2038. Okay, that table is from the 11th edition of Basic Plan for Electricity. And here the additional demand refers to the demand expected beyond the model projected demand based on existing trends. Along with data centers, growing demand from electrification has also been significantly reflected. And however, the 11th edition still takes conservative approaches to estimating additional demand. So it's expected that the figure will increase further in the upcoming 12th edition. Okay, and one of the key challenges for Korea's future power supply and demand is the expansion of the transmission network. And currently, most renewable energy facilities are concentrated in the Jeolla region. Okay, see the west-south part of the Korea. And additional installations are also planned there. In contrast, electricity demand is heavily concentrated in the Seoul and Gyeonggi regions, driven by population density and semiconductor manufacturing and the growth of data centers. This upward trend is expected to continue. As a result, a large-scale transmission network is needed to deliver surplus electricity from the Jeolla regions to the Seoul metropolitan area. However, progress on this front has been slow due to various challenges, including local opposition from residents. So as an alternative, the use of distributed energy systems is also being discussed now. Okay. Upward electricity demand is also reflected in the KEI's long-term energy outlook. The KEI model reflects energy demand and supply by sectors covering the industrial, transport, residential, service, and conversion sectors. And the expansion of the data centers and AI application is closely linked to the ICT industry within the service sector. And the model reflects that the energy demand in ICT industry will triple by 2040 compared to the current level. And also across all sectors and industries, electricity consumption is expected to increase due to greater mechanization, electrification, and the growing use of AI. And these factors are considered to contribute to higher energy demand for equipment and fertility usage. And from my perspective, a large number of high-density, large-scale data center will probably not be necessary in Korea. It means don't have to be many data center, large data center should be constructed. So while the load burden from data center is expected to rise, but exact figures and scale remain still uncertain. So there is a big problem for long-term outlook. Okay. Okay, finally, I'd like to share two additional points. And fourth, it is important to monitor the growing dependence on electricity. The factor driving increased electricity demand can be broadly divided into two categories: changes in lifestyle and production patterns, and efforts to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Each of these two factors will likely require different approaches for effective management. And at the same time, while digitalization enhances productivity and energy efficiency across various sectors, the continued expansion of production activities is likely to lead to a gradual increase in electricity demand. And it is also important to ensure a stable national electricity supply. Okay, due to our geographical and environmental conditions, Korea must maintain a self-sufficient electricity supply. But expanding electricity supply capacity while meeting greenhouse gas reduction targets presents a significant challenge. And currently, only two large-scale nuclear power plants are planned, but it also could be changed. And Korea aims to achieve a stable power supply through the expansion of renewable energy, energy storage systems, and power grid stabilization measures. And as electricity demand may surge at certain stages of the greenhouse gas reduction process, so it is crucial to establish implement medium to long-term strategies for power supply. Okay, this is end of my presentation, and thank you for listening. Okay.
Thank you so much. I made some notes for some additional challenges compared to the earlier presentations. Last but not least, I will welcome Joana Stella Castellanas Arias to give the presentation from Colombia. She is the subdirector of demand of the subdirector of demand UPME. So please go. Floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody, once again. I want to try to tell a story in 10 minutes or less in order to show three elements or 3 points. The first ones, some applied, some data tools that we are built into the unit. And of course, how we can use and combine these tools into integrating our models in order to evolve our current projection of the demand. And of course, how we can take into account the data centers demand in our models. And finally, how we use additionally this tool for capture in real time or as fast possible the data from our generation in renewables, because we are in IRENA, so the idea is to show you the context and how we can evolve these tools into in order to capture the demand for other sectors, like for example electrical vehicles or something like that, into our model in order to less the uncertainty and include, of course, stochastic models in our projection. So this is the point that I want to show you. So I will start. So I just want to mention that 3 months ago, I was the deputy director of the information subdivision, and the UPME, that's the unit plan, the mining and energy unit planning unit, have another role, that is the chief information officer of the energy sector, mining and energy sector in Colombia. So we have another complementary tool and complementary role, because we need to take and lead all data of the sector in the country. So it could be an advantage because we can integrate this information into the model. So the first point that I want to show you, this is just a mix from the session 4 than yesterday, section 6 from today, and probably session 7. So it's a mixed presentation. Yes. So it is just the main characteristic of our system on tools. And our first tool that we developed was the geoportal sectorial tool that involved the information from electricity mining, hydrocarbons, geological perspective, and environmental and social in mining and energy. So we have a geoportal platform that includes all of these variables with geoservice dashboards, and we can put all in open for share for everybody. And of course, we collect the data for different agency and from the ministry and put all together in one platform. So what is the idea? To share, to connect to everybody, to serve a data exchange hub, to maximize the information, to base locate the insights. And probably the most important is to the transparency, and of course, that everybody can take the data in real time and in just one place. And of course, this is just a service that we have and we can share some of the interface. And additionally, the second interface or platform that is not new, but we improve a lot, is our information system, the Colombian Mining and Energy Information System. It's called CIMEC. Sistema de Información Minero Energético Colombiano. But what is the point here? So after the geographical, we need to put all together. And okay, for example, we have demand and offered energy data into the system. You can see now, for example, our primary matrix and all information in this system. And of course, the electrical data too, in a long term, but in a short term too. And of course, we have another tool for put digitally the Colombian energy balance. Of course, they have the offers and demand. And it's very interesting because we can choose, select, and whatever. And now, finally, the demand projections. So we developed some models for generate some scenarios for the demand. And how we can create these scenarios is a deterministic model. We capture the huge demands that we can take in Colombia for some resolutions that we get. It's 0.75, and with these resolutions, the huge loads need to report to the unit if they want to connect, and we can allow or not, or say, please reinforce that in your connection, whatever. So it means that we have, or we know what will be the big load or big charges that go into the system, transmission system and national and regional system, and of course into the local system with the DSOs. How we can do it? We get all of the data. Oh, okay. And if you can see, we can collect the data from some data center. This is the real data from our last projection. And in this case, we get per year what will be the consumption for each data center. This is the real information or the real project that will be built in Colombia. However, we know that exist another ones that probably the government announced or some company want to create. In fact, us want to create one from the energy and mining sector, but it's not officially yet because we need to get the budget and to be a reality, and of course to go to the unit, to the planning unit to say, okay, I want to put this load into the system. However, this is the complete real project that we know that will be, if you can see the next year, they go inside into the system. And of course, for all demand, so for all big demand, we have a conversation with the stakeholders and see really how is your project in advance, you will go into the system or not, because of course, if not, the demand go down or go up or whatever. Yeah. So this is the first approach. But what we want to do in the future, we want to develop a stochastic model, because currently our model is deterministic. So the next year, we're starting to change our model. We want to include this uncertainty like a stochastic model. And of course, these projection of the demand are completely related with the scenarios that we develop in our energy plan. So it supply our energy plan. So it's very important for us to include in the beginning the stochasticity of the model. Nowadays, it's deterministic. This is the normal procedure, but probably the next year we can publish our first energy demand in a stochastic way. So I just want to show you nowadays, this is from the employment. We have some models. The idea is to capture the employment for the transition. So we start with the solar panels, but we want to move in order, for example, electromobility and other things in demand. And I want to show you this a practical implementation in our system. Now it's for generation, but we want to move into demand. In fact, by resolution, the ministry says that they may need to build an information system for capture the information in real time of the electroliners or electrochargers for electrical vehicles. So this is just one example that we can move. And of course, we are in renewables association or agency, so I want to show you just for finish. This is just the data that we capture from different agents and company of the country. And we develop this type of architectures in our team. I just want to show you because it's not the topic of this session, but it's just for your knowledge. And you can see here that we can compact all information in just one. Nowadays it's not data center, but it's in process. We are collecting in a data lake or in our databases, but the idea is that compact all of this and someday could be a data center. So this is currently, because I took the picture yesterday, our generation in real time. Of course, it's not by seconds, but it's the most realistic. And in our information system, additionally, we developed two artificial intelligence solutions, one for solar potential and the other one for identify the generations, the distributed generations in the rooftop, because it's not easy to see with the operator. So the idea is to capture with satellite images the number of panels. Of course, it's not possible to see the power, but you can calculate a medium and have an estimation of the generation of solar generation with these tools. So additionally, we develop a monitoring center for you can see the name 6 gigawatts plus, because it's the goal of our president that in our governmental plan says that we need to put into the system 2 gigawatts of renewable energy, but president says it's not enough. I want 6 gigawatts. So we are working in 6 gigawatts. And as you see here and in the other place, we are in 3 gigawatts, so we need to move faster. So, okay, we have, we are not probably Brazil or Chile, but we are starting, and this is our DAC curve. And you can see how the renewable have increased, and all of this in, again, real time. So this is an example. Additionally, we have some monitoring from the projects that are going to reside into the transmission lines, the high scale. and additionally, the transmissions project. So we can monitor how it's growing or how is the building of the new projects. And of course, this is restricted. Just the ministry and presidents have access. Of course, you can take picture because it's an example, but the idea is we have a public system and private system, and additionally a geo portal that can, in which you can locate different information. So what is the idea? Just for finish my presentation, first of all, to include the stochasticity into the demand projections. And the second message is we need to use of course, the data, the digitalizations tools, the artificial intelligence to improve our models. So this is an example that I want to show you today. Thank you. And of course, have a nice session.
So thank you very much. That linked very nicely with the other presentations, because now you are talking that how you have been doing the demand predictions. But we will now move to the panel discussion. So I would like to ask the presenters, and then we will also have Maria Miletic from European Commission Joint Research Center. So please have your seat over there. Okay. Well, Maria, because you didn't have the presentation, could you a little bit tell about your perspective about the topic today or this session?
Yes, thank you. So I think with risk of sounding like I misunderstood the assignment, I want to talk a little about flexibility. And when you hear data center, you think, oh, there's no flexibility there. They need to work all the time. And I would like to give a couple of examples from our research at my department of Joint Research Center, where we try to prove that there is worth in flexibility, even in those inflexible types of demand. First, I want to mention my own research. So I'm mostly concerned with the climate change impacts on the power system. And now when you start talking about climate change impacts, I kind of started looking into other aspects of the power system, of the energy system, and not only power. And my recent study was on heating and cooling, assuming very, very optimistic flexibility for these devices, just to see what happens in the model. And what we learned is, as the climate change comes, the demand is shifted from winter to summer, because cooling systems have much less thermal energy storage at their disposal, being able to use only the building envelope and not, I don't know, hot water tanks. It actually limits our available flexibility in the system and increases renewable energy curtailment. So we need more flexibility, and we will need probably all these additional high demand facilities to also provide some. Another colleague of mine has done a study on flexibility, and in that study we tried to show how actually even industry, which is not in European industry, which is in general also considered inflexible for the most part. I think our assumptions in the model are, depending on the EU country, between 2 and 8% of total demand of the industrial facilities could be made flexible, which is really conservative compared to other flexibility options that we had in the model. But still, in that case, compared to the counterfactual case where there is no flexibility from industry, we showed that there is a benefit for the industry, around, I think, 12% decrease of electricity price for them if they even provide this low level of flexibility. And this 12% is in the order of magnitude of billions of euros. Similarly, we've shown similar thing for electric vehicles. So I think even for these non-flexible technologies, we should start considering their option to provide flexibility. And not only demand centers, I know that today's topic is demand centers, but other large demand side resources have appeared as ideas to fill the negative price hours in Europe, like desalination plants, which are also considered non-flexible. We should run them all the time to produce water for drinking and for other purposes in Europe. And talking about water, it is very important to consider not only electricity use from the data centers, but also water usage, because they are not only using water, but they are using the drinkable water that are actually otherwise is going into the supply of our cities and agriculture. So yeah, that's I guess it from me as an introduction.
Yeah, thank you very much. Very good that you raised the water issue up, because I guess that especially in war-like countries with a warm climate, that is a critical issue. In Finland, we have cold and we have water. So that's one of the reasons why the international investors are really like looking for the investments to come to Finland. But I also took the like what Jana was, you said that there is like ambitious some policies that how many megawatts you want to install, because I would like to also like give the example that in the existing government program in Finland, it's written there that Finland will double the electricity production. Year is not mentioned, but there isn't anything about the demand. It's just the political will that we will double the electricity production with the renewables and so on. But that is a good example. But I would like to especially now ask from our country representatives how the countries have capturing the early digitalization signals, like and in the scenarios, and has there been any impact of the capturing of the digitalization in scenarios in investment planning?
Okay. Okay. In our team, doing long-term energy outlook, in our model, we reflect the increasing energy demand in two main ways. First, we raise the energy demand of industries which are expected to grow by raising energy intensity of the industry. And second, we project a higher demand from equipment and facilities that are likely to use more energy in the future by using AI and computers. And also, we, in the reference scenario of our outlook, we assume a natural process of electrification. So the share of electricity used keeps rising across all sectors in our reference scenario. So since our model is assumed that a balance of electricity supply and demand, so higher electricity demand means more power generation. However, in our projection, in our outlook, we simply apply the capacity plans from the government's electricity plan, basic plan. So we don't make separate investment decisions for new power plants. So in Korea, the electricity supply is mostly managed by the public sector. So capacity planning depends largely on government decisions. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, actually, there was no, up to 5 years ago or something, there was no direct impact of these early digitalization signals in the planning. It was a concern. As I said in my presentation, now it is a concern and it is already included in the national energy and climate program, but not yet in the roadmap for carbon neutrality. But that anyway, it's being updated. These signals from the interest of new infrastructure for computation are being handled more or less as I said in my presentation. So the small ones that are existing are not a concern. They have already been handled by the system, let's say. So it's not a concern. This new generation of larger ones they show their interest to implement to install in the country, but it's not that they are mandatory. There are mandatory rules for their geographical location, but in practice, when they try to plan where they will be installed, they end up in these electro-intensive areas, in these areas of industrial zoning. And by the way, these data centers are just another issue that for us in Portugal, it is perhaps a bit less concerning than hydrogen production, which also has these large energy demands. They do not need to have a flat profile, but they add to these projects that are located in these industrial zones. And so the planning tends to go on like this. There are a plan from the government that is submitted every, a plan from the TSO that is submitted every 2 years to the government. And there's lots of organizations that say, yes, no, perhaps more ambitious, less ambitious. And the thing is that the government is reluctant to authorize the expansion of the grid in general. So the planning goes in a cautious way. Specific needs are authorized, but not a general expansion of the grid to accept all these new charges. So instead, as I explained, what the project developers do is associate and pay themselves the costs of grid expansion, let's say, in these areas. And of course, this is some planning, but it's not like an energy planning. It's a zone planning of the electricity. So that's it. I think I said too much.
Don't worry, not too much. Yeah, what is the most challenging, for example, if I'm thinking about the change, it is the speed of change.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering that how much the policymakers can take the hint from the scenario modelers. Are we on track with the speed of change? But for how you had real-time data in Colombia and like data centers to monitor things, but how you see this thing?
Just for complement about the that I say in the presentation, I just want to say that we have another plan is for energy efficiency, and in that plan, in fact, we are building now, and the idea is to publish the next year in the first semester. In that plan, we have one section dedicated to digitalization of the demand. So for us, it's very important. And of course, the energy efficiency plan is talking with the energy plan. So of course, one of the pillar of the energy scenarios is the energy efficiency. So finally, if you include some goals with some exact percentage, I don't remember, but it was today, this in the first session, some speaker talk about energy efficiency at that you need to put some specific goals for different tasks, or for example, electric vehicles, where the percentage that go inside into the cars market and whatever. And all of these measurements can be modeled in detail in the energy efficiency plans, and in generally go to the energy plan that have the all overview. And additionally, we're working in an artificial intelligence document in order to put the application that we are working in Colombia, not just in the unit, but other institutions that in the electrical sector, and of course to include the what is the projections of data centers for the energy sector. And finally, in my subdivision, we have another task, and it's not exactly for planning, but it's how to close the bridge between plan and the reality. So we give the incentive, the tax incentive. So we have tax incentive for energy efficiency in Colombia. So we are working to modify our resolution for include energy efficiency measurements or actions for topics related with digitalizations and data centers and whatever. So we are thinking in order to be ready when data centers growing and whatever. Yes. So this is just some key points that I want to complement.
Thank you very much. I will have dedicated the last question to Maria, because what we have been realized that it's very difficult to find any data related to the electricity demand for data centers. We have been discussing about open access and transparency, but that is a real challenge, at least from our perspective. So we have ended up into the situation because we are utilizing waste heat for district heating. So we know about more or less the amount of district heat, and then we are calculating backwards what is potentially the electricity demand for the data centers. But Maria, you have been working at the JRC, but could you give any suggestions or hints that what kind of approaches the countries could use to anticipate the impacts of digitalization? Do you have any ideas on that?
So I haven't done anything on this topic.
Okay.
But one thing that I heard from your example is that you applied creativity. And I think we already heard yesterday that creativity and diverse voices improve our modeling and our forecasting. So I think adding a little creativity to everything will for sure give us better answers than we have now.
Yeah, thank you. I fully agree. But is there anybody from our other panelists want to reveal that what kind of data sources you have been looking for when you have been like looking at the digitalization and electricity demand growth? Any hints for us? We can also answer from the audience. So if you have any hints, of course, straight ahead. Please.
Hello, Arnaldo from EPE Brazil. First of all, congratulations for all the presentations. Two questions. First for Johanna. How do you collect the data from data centers to reach the scenario for demand? Does they have some kind of obligation, or do you talk to each one of them? How do you do that? And the other one for everyone. How do you see how the country can have benefits of receiving data center plants in terms of income or jobs, or even creating a chain of supply, because it's a huge demands of energy and water, and it's interesting for developing the country. Thank you.
The matrix that I showed you, in which we have some data from the projection of the data centers, come from an obligation, because they exist a resolution or a regulatory document in which all demand, the high demands more than 5 megawatts need to be have a procedure in order to the transmission system can adopt, and the unit accept or decline these requirements. So for that reason, we know which type of loads more than 5 megawatts can go into the system. However, we are working with the telecommunications ministry in order to identify another projections, because in our country, our president wants to build some data centers, and the idea is to, of course, they are not completely real, because of course it's just projections or ideas or whatever. Of course, when it materializes, probably they need to require the procedure, but it's very important to see in advance what will happen. So we are talking with this ministry, and additionally with the Ministry of the Science Ministry. That in that ministry, it's in charge of the development of in Colombia, and the president put or says to this ministry that please help to develop the intelligence, the artificial intelligence into the country, and of course work together with the technology ministry in order to create data centers and capacity buildings into the country for this development. So as I mentioned before, we need to create another solution, economical solution for the transition. And the president says that one of these areas could be the artificial intelligence, that it means that we need to prepare the infrastructure and technologically, and of course in energy. So this is just the resume answer.
I had time to think about the answer while the other speakers speak. Actually, it works like this. For gathering data around about data center energy consumption, we have this obligation in Portugal that consumers with especially large consumption of energy, not just electricity, they have to propose and get approved an energy efficiency plan. So they have report obligations under those energy efficiency plans for specific companies, for specific installations. and so we get the data from there. It's not too difficult anyway. I must say in passing that these water requirements, we are aware of the water requirements, but I'm sorry, but these do not. I disagree with you. Well, at least in our policies, you cannot have drinking water to cool data centers. They are either located on the near the coast and get desalinized water from the ocean, or they use let's say cleaned from the, I missed the term in English, the waste water processing plants. So it's a different source of water. It's not drinking water, and when we make the computations, it's perfectly possible to have these water consumptions in our water supply structure. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. We already have here James, who has been doing like this for some time. So please, you have a question for the panelists.
If I may, it's more of a statement about data again. You were talking about creativity for data sets. Like a lot of the data centers are obviously keeping their cards very close to their chest on what they're consuming. But we know in the US, at least, like Google are happy to go buy Vogtle, which is the most expensive nuclear reactor ever built. So money isn't a cost for their electricity demand, let's say. But so two examples. In the US, before I left Columbia, we did a piece of work for the ISO around DC and Virginia's south of the Potomac. And the way we did it was you take Google Earth, you get the floor area of the data centers. There's industry standards. Depending on whether you're a Netflix data center or you're an LLM data center, you're going to have different types of GPUs and CPUs in your server racks. You get a megawatt or hundreds of kilowatts per square meter, and that's your demand, your capacity intensity per type of data center, and they're changing like every 6 months depending on which generation of NVIDIA chips you're using, if you're an LLM server data center or a general services data center. And I forgot what my second point was, but the creativity is really important.
Thank you. Does anybody want to respond to comment, or should we continue? Are there other questions in the audience? Yes, please.
I'll take this one instead. I mean, probably I used my time here. I mean, I shouldn't say anymore. No, I was just wondering, I was hoping that you, being an Irishman, would actually talk about Ireland and data centers, but you can come back to that. Right, because I mean, essentially, data centers and that's an energy-intensive industry, offering not very many jobs, but always being very attractive to particularly local communities when operators like Amazon, Google, and Facebook knocks on the door of local politicians and say, we would like to establish ourselves here. It's always very tempting. There's a regional perspective here, which I would like you to try to address, because some of you talked about the regional, I mean, that demand is also has a regional perspective. And that's where Ireland comes in, because obviously it may be that in Korea, establishing 10 data centers is not a big issue, because you have 550 or something terawatt hours of consumption, and adding another 10 is not maybe a big problem, but it's a big problem adding 10 terawatt hours to the 30 or whatever, 30 terawatt hours of Ireland. And that's why Ireland has actually stopped having new data centers in the Dublin area, as far as I'm concerned. You can elaborate on that. And so I wanted to ask about, because we have the same situation in Denmark, because we have also, we've sort of calculated whenever a new big data center moves in, then if you want to supply that with wind, then it takes a 250 megawatt offshore wind farm in a good location to feed that. So that's what you need to build in a very short time, as you also pointed out, because they usually move in within very short time frame. So how do you deal with that in a regional perspective? Because quite often it's really a regional thing as well, because it means a lot in a local or regional context when you move in with such an energy demanding industry.